Okay, we're now live streaming.
Okay, we're on the record, and I think before we start our agenda today, there's a couple of statements we'd like to make on last week's experience with the crashing of our committee during our break time. And I certainly was horrified when that happened, and I want to tell you that I thought we backed up our pro tem statement, and we also were very pleased with the Agency of Transportation and their acknowledgement, and took care of it rapidly and dismissed the person. And we hope this never happens again in the future. It's a terrible thing to have happen, but most of the committee members were not aware of this incident because it was during our break. But upon hearing about it, I can tell you that we were very upset, and we hope this never happens again in the future. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the Vice Chair for a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted folks to know that none of the committee or the committee assistant had heard it. Had we heard it, we would have kicked off the person right away. I didn't want people to think that it happened and then we went on for another couple hours without doing anything. We didn't know about it, and we're supportive of the pro tem and the chair's statements on the matter, and we are supportive of AOT's statement and the work that they're doing with the company RSG. They did swiftly terminate the employee, which was the appropriate thing to do, and we encourage them to continue to work with the company on the next steps for training for their employees and working towards, anti-racism policy so it doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Okay, with that, anybody other statements, and we'll move on. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, what's our first agenda, Liz?
Going right to 21-0039 with Anthea.
Okay, good morning, Anthea.
Good morning. So for the record, Anthea Dexter Cooper from the Office of Legislative Counsel. The only item that I had that I was to follow up on was the decibel limit for motorboats. There was a question one about what they were, so I have that statute pulled up, and then also whether or not they would apply to personal watercraft, so I can walk through why I think they do. But that's a little bit outside the realm of the bill, so I don't know if you want to do that now or go on to testimony from the agency and the department on the bill. So that's the only thing that I had teed up for today.
Whatever you're prepared to want to do first, go right ahead.
Okay, great. Liz, thank you for giving me share access. So I am putting up on the screen 20. Can you see Vermont statutes online?
Yeah.
Up on the website?
Yeah.
Great. I'm always a little thrown because it pops up on a different screen. So 23 VSA section 3309. It says that the exhaust of every internal combustion engine used on any motorboat shall be effectively muffled by equipment so constructed and used to muffle the noise of the exhaust in a manner that reduces the maximum machine operating noise level to not more than 82 decibels on the A scale at 50 feet in a normal operating environment. That language should look familiar. That's what's being struck out in the snowmobile chapter. And I do wonder if someone who is more familiar with the industry and enforcement's ability to actually measure this, since that was, I believe, part of the impetus behind proposing the change to the snowmobile laws, if a similar it's difficult to measure issue is present here. And then the statute goes on to talk about when cutouts are prohibited, and there's language about participations in a regatta. So getting to the question of what motorboats this would apply to, you can see that this 82 decibel standard applies if there is an internal combustion engine on a motorboat. So I'm going to go back to the bill for our definition of motorboats so we can look both at what the current definition is and what the proposed definition will be. So you have motorboat means any vessel propelled by machinery. That's the current definition. And the updated definition would be motorboat means any vessel equipped with machinery capable of propelling the vessel. So motorboats are going to be things that have something in it that can propel the vessel. Looking at the definition of personal watercraft, this is the jet skis. I do think they would fall under the definition of motorboat. It has an inboard engine powering a water jet pump as its primary source of motive power. So I think that your current law on the decibel limit would apply to personal watercrafts and then other vessels that meet the definition of motorboat. And I think that will be the same whether you make the changes to the definitions of motorboat or personal watercraft or not. And then the outstanding question is if you want to stick with the 82 decibels.
Okay. Yes, Senator Perchlik.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. And Thea, the question I had on the snowmobiles, which I can't remember if you were going to look at or how we were going to deal.
Mike,
Does the certification talk about decibels or, sound, or is that what Mike's going to talk about?
I believe Mike was going to touch on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
I
Yes. Senator
haven't, I haven't got a clue what 82 decibels.
And I
Can
can't,
anybody tell me?
I can't help you today. In front of my place, it's there's no boats out there today, so I can't give you a comparison.
Anybody? I have no idea in terms of
I don't know. That's a
relativity.
good question. I don't have any idea. How does it vary from today? What their usage is today versus the 82?
But the 82 decibels, is that so that is that a reasonable and a consistent standard across noise measurement? I don't have a context.
Senator
for
Ingles
it.
is our boat person. Why don't we ask him?
Senator Chittenden?
Senator
Oh,
Chittenden,
Senator
you're-
Ingles. Oh, yeah.
I don't know what 82 decibels is, but I'm sure I'm below it.
I just looked online and they say 90 decibels is a hair dryer or a lawnmower.
Oh my God.
No.
Well, that's not bad. No, that's pretty cool. I didn't think it was causing much of a stir because I hadn't heard from anybody yet. So I don't know.
Lawnmower can be noisy.
Yeah, it all depends what kind of lawnmower. Yeah, electric or.
I think
So what-
Tony Facos has his hand up, but I was going to say I always thought of 85 as like a vacuum cleaner, but I don't know if that's right or not.
Well,
I
that's-
can just add from in the past with with a municipal noise ordinance, we used to have a decibel meter. And one of the things that's not clearly addressed is that with the decibels is, what's the distance that you're taking that reading from and what's established. In other words, if you're sitting on the beach and high performance cigarette boat with twin 454 big V8s goes through where their exhaust is ported differently from a standard runabout, could be very loud. But again, what's the distance you're measuring from? And that's where it's really problematic. And also those sophisticated tools require calibration. I mean, you can use one, for example, you can actually download it, an app on an iPhone for a decibel reading to measurement device. But again, is that something that would you use in an evidentiary capacity? So anyway, so distance has to be factored in, generally speaking, when you're looking at anything regarding decibels. And that's just from my experience with Montpelier, where we had an ordinance that we specifically had a decibel reading, which basically meant you couldn't mow your lawn, and so kind of thing. So it can be problematic, but certainly it's not as simple as just putting out there what the reading should be.
One of the things in my area, I have never, ever heard of a complaint of noise on a boat. The only one, once in a very, very seldom, a cigarette boat will go by and someone will have concerns. But being in the bay, it's pretty hard for them to open up too fast because they need some strength or some length of, but they can be very, very noisy. But there's not that many of them. There's probably a couple in the area. And, but when they crank up the, full capacity, they're very, but no one's ever complained to me about it. So, just, yes. Anybody else?
Michael Smith, Director of Operations for DMV. I did hear back from FAST, which was my takeaway from the last meeting. And basically, and Tony's kind of covered some of it. And, basically just from Matt at VAST, he said, current statute will require all law enforcement officers to carry calibrated decibel meters to see if machines passing by meet that level. The statute talks about at exactly 50 feet in normal operating environment. You know, and part of the struggle is when that snowmobile is approaching you, how do you know when they're at 50 feet, normal travel and stuff like that? So it makes it hard for them to enforce. Additionally, the cost of decibel readers for every law enforcement officer enforcing snowmobile laws would be problematic. They use a bunch of different sheriffs and police officers. They kind of rotate in. And Pat Poulin from VAST sent me the SSCC documentation. And basically he cut out just 2 sections, and the first part says sound pressure level of the snowmobile shall not exceed 73 decibels on the A scale, 73 dBA, when tested in accordance with SAE and a bunch of different numbers. So basically the concept is the snowmobiles are produced meeting that standard, and as long as they are not modified and meet that SSCC standard, that's what they're after. If it's higher than that, clearly it's been modified and wouldn't have the sticker on the muffler.
Yeah, they're nowhere near snowmobiles what they used to be years ago when they first came out. They're much quieter today, and I think you're right. The manufacturers have made it so. So again, I don't hear complaints on those either, but it's because they're manufactured. Now it's like an automobile. If you want to change it and make it louder, you can do that, but that's in violation. And but even car manufacturers don't make them to the extent they're that loud, unless you want to tune them up when you get them home. Right. Senator Kitchell, you're on the snowmobile group. Anything comment?
Well, no, that was the question in terms of what was the standard that was applied in order to meet the certification. And 73 decibels obviously is less than what was referenced in statute for motorboats. So it seems like you going the certification route provides a standard that is not, it pretty much aligns with what we currently have, but is a much easier way of enforcement. Simply you have that certification seal or you don't. So I think that it's helpful to know what was underneath the certification requirements in that area. So.
Okay, any other discussion on this subject? Okay, if not, we can move on. Is this in a piece of legislation we have to address?
Yeah, it's in DMV. It's
it's in their miscellaneous?
Yeah, it's in the
Okay,
miscellaneous bill, and it was what they're doing is replacing the decibel with the certification standard.
Okay.
And I think it makes sense in light of what we have and knowing what the standard is for that certification. So I think I'm willing to concur that that's a good recommendation. It's a change that we should include in the DMV bill.
Anybody have any objection to that at this point? We can put it behind us. Okay, we're all ready? Okay, that's good. All right. Okay, what do we do next?
So Mr. Chair, I'll mark off that closes out section 8. And then we finished our walkthrough of the miscellaneous motor vehicle bill last week, but the only person you heard from was me doing that first walkthrough.
Okay.
So from DMV's perspective, are you interested in me? I know the bill's not super exciting this year, so I don't know if you want me to.
I thought you had a lot of issues this year, but I just sensed that the most of it was on this subject that we're talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. The one issue, and this is one that I believe is in, Anthea, I think it's coming in the next draft, or did it make it into this one? It's the change in the commercial driver's license standards.
I can put it up on the screen.
Okay, could you please? I just want to make sure that everybody understands the impact of that change, because it does have an impact. And, so back in 2015, as part of the MAP 21 federal regulation, they made some changes in regards to CDL training requirements, and it's called entry-level driver training. And basically what this does, and so our section, you can't see me pointing, but our section where we added in the 49 CFR Part 380, which is on line 12, basically allows us to be in compliance with this new federal mandate. This federal mandate basically changes it so that today you could walk into DMV and you can take your learner's permit exam and obtain a CDL permit. You could then return in 14 days if you already know how to drive a commercial motor vehicle, take your test and obtain a CDL license. Once this federal regulation goes into effect, that is no longer the case. People are required to take certain training in order to receive a Class A or Class B CDL or to upgrade from a B to an A. And the way that originally it came out, they had required like 140 hours of training for each step of the process. The federal government took many comments from all of the states and they backed off of that requirement. At this point in time, when the rule goes into effect, there is no specific period of training. They just need to make sure that they've covered all points required for the training for that class of CDL, if that makes any sense. So industry is aware. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration holds quarterly meetings. Individuals that attended are Vermont Truck and Bus, the Fuel Dealers Association, Bella Vance Trucking, DMV, State Police, Bill Smith, and others that attend. So this is widely known. Larger corporations, and I won't name any, but well, AOT. So we are a larger corporation and generally we train our own staff to drive plow trucks. In order for us to continue to be able to do that, we have to become accredited with the federal government so that they have reviewed our training and assure that we are meeting that criteria. Your other larger companies like school bus companies and mass transit companies, they have historically always trained their own staff. They are working with the federal government to also become accredited so that they can continue to train their own staff. The federal government set up it's kind of like a federal clearinghouse where when you come into DMV to move to your commercial license, we're required to check and verify that you have received this training and that you are noted in the federal database as having completed the training. From there, we would then move on to issue the CDL. So that's really the condensed version of what this change does.
Questions? Yes, Senator Kitchell.
Okay, so they do the training. Do they actually do the testing as well? And you accept those test results for the companies that are certified to do so, the larger corporations? And my next question is, what about the small companies that don't have the capacity to do their own training? Does the department administer that? And can you have multiple CDLs? It says you've got to be a Vermont resident, so you can't issue a CDL license to someone who's not a Vermont resident. I guess there are three questions there.
I was going to say, so I'm going to try and answer them in reverse order. So no, you cannot have multiple CDLs. You must be a Vermont resident. Smaller companies would have to either hire individuals that already have a commercial license, or the individual would have to attend one of the schools or one of the other companies that is accredited to train. And the first question is, I don't remember now. What was the first question?
That they would administer the tests as well.
So no, we will remain the entity that is doing the testing. We do not do third-party CDL testing in Vermont.
Okay. It seems that it could be a potential conflict of interest there to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Because let me just bring up an issue. The Vermont Strong Plate is still allowed on vehicles. We haven't done away with it. We haven't banned them. They're still there on the front plate of a car.
Mhm.
Also, the police now have done away with plate readers. They gave them all up. It was a big thing a few years ago. They all wanted plate readers to read the car, the plates, and they've all given them up because the cost was too high to maintain. Why don't we consider again selling another plate for revenue and cutting back on our front plates, which aren't used anymore anyway? Why wouldn't we have a little saving and a little incentive to sell more plates. Is that something that's open for discussion, or is that something that someone has made a firm decision on? Because we have not put a deadline on the Vermont Strong plates. They're out there, they're using them, which is fine, and people are still requesting them or something else in that category. So I didn't know if that was open for discussion or not.
Is your question to me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So I would say that we're always open for discussions. I do not know what the current position of the administration is in
Yeah,
regards
don't
to two
either.
plates versus one.
Okay. Well, I'll just, we'll have to check on that. So anything else in this bill that people are concerned about? Anything else we should know about, Mike, in this bill?
So no, the bill is actually very, very bland this year, which is, in my opinion, a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, Senator Kirkland.
I noticed in the statute, because we have the temporary plates part in there, that it basically gives the power to the commissioner to decide if there's a single plate or not. At least the way I read the statute, I thought was interesting. So I guess it's a question for Anthea. Is that correct interpretation? So she could, or the commissioner could decide, we're just going to move to one plate.
So I'll put the language up since it actually is in your bill. Just one moment.
I think it's in the first paragraph, first page.
It is very close to the beginning. Might actually be the first section. Yeah.
I get this question from constituents. Either they think we're going to save money from the state, or especially people that have older cars, antique cars, that don't have a front license plate placed. They're forced to drill holes in the bumper of their antique car, or that's the way they present it, or they have to find another way to attach it.
Many cars are coming through today, new vehicles without a bracket for the front plate. And you're right, you either have to drill through the fiberglass to put the plate. And I'm just saying, the issue was with the police, they were very adamant about, they had those plate readers, and now they've given them up. They don't need them any longer. They said it wasn't worth it for the upkeep, which every police department had them pretty much. And my question again is, how much do we save on one side, and can we possibly get into another? And I said, I haven't checked with the administration. Can we sell another plate to raise some money like we did with Vermont Strong plates, which were very, very successful? In fact, the commissioner had a mask on the other day, a face shield there, and she had. I said we ought to sell those too, to raise money. But it's just a thought. I don't know who to ask, but maybe Mike can check with the commissioner.
I can.
And it would be interesting if we take it up to hear from public safety. If the
Yes,
police-
sure. No, we do it all. That's yes, Senator Ingalls.
There's nothing in the bill that is toughening CDL requirements for the older drivers who are already established CDL drivers. I've got a constituency of, I was just trying to think in my head, 20 drivers that have retired, and life probably hasn't been the best for them as far as any type of savings other than their Social Security. So they're actually they're driving summer jobs and collecting unemployment in the wintertime. So no toughening of older drivers in this bill.
So this bill only, it doesn't go retroactive. It applies day forward. So individuals who are new CDL applicants after, I believe it's February 7th, 2022, would be required to comply with this federal regulation. So as long as they already have the CDL and do not lose it or give it up, they're in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
Okay. Yes, Senator Kitchell, go right ahead.
no, Andy put his head, I was just thinking that as painful as it might be, we should probably just go through and close out every section
Sure.
from the beginning. It is, I hate to say it, it is not the most exciting piece of legislation that we might have before us.
Mike
But
spent a lot of time on this one. He didn't lose a lot of sleep on this one. No.
yeah, well, yeah, I'll let you lose your sleep then. So I'm just thinking that after we have just some general questions, if we just start closing out sections and moving this bill along.
Okay, we can do that right now if we want. Thea, if you want to take us through, we can do that.
I had one general question.
Yeah,
Mark,
go right ahead. Yep.
Which I remember from last year. It's not in the bill, so it's maybe just an update that Mr. Smith can give us the answer to. And that is, we had that incident in New Hampshire of the driver of the truck that ran into the group of motorcyclists.
Yes.
And that driver had a suspended license, I think, in Massachusetts, but it was still driving in New Hampshire or whatever the situation was. I can't remember if we feel confident that our ability to catch that, like we have that covered, like somebody isn't getting a license in Vermont that has a suspended license somewhere else.
They are not. We do have that covered, and there was all kinds of reports that came out from the NTSB. Please don't ask me what the acronym means because I don't know.
Yeah.
And basically, I am in the process of writing a response for Joe Flynn back to them in regards to the steps that we have taken. They've asked for information in regards to not only CDL transmission of convictions and withdrawals, but also in regards to, helmet laws and motorcycle safety and stuff like that. So being the CDL coordinator for the last 20 years for the state of Vermont, I am very proud of the progress that the state has made in regards to all of this stuff and keeping ourselves in compliance. When I first became coordinator, there was over 30 pages of findings. We now get 3 each year, and most of them are the same ones, and it's in regards to timeliness of convictions. One of the issues that we're up against is I cannot push the judiciary branch. So if convictions come in late from the judiciary branch, I have 10 days to transmit it from conviction. If I get them on the 12th day, we're late. But we take the action as necessary. We work with the judiciary branch to try and expedite these convictions coming through and the associated withdrawals. So we take every step we can to keep everybody safe.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. And Thea, you want to take us through and we can check them off as we see fit or hold off?
Sure thing. Okay, so starting back up at the beginning, the first section, this is the one that is doing some cleanup in the statute, adding in some subsection headings. And then the substantive change is to specify how temporary and in-transit registration plates must be displayed. And this is allowing for them to be displayed inside the vehicle. It needs to be on the rear. It needs to be in a conspicuous place. It can't be obstructed, and it needs to be horizontal. And this is one of the sections that is effective retroactively to September 8th of 2020. And that's when the DMV started issuing plates that you could print at home. I have that there was one question on the next section, which is actually establishing the commissioner's authority to do these printed home plates. And that had to do with whether or not you wanted to clearly specify that it needed to be printed from a computer and not hand printed as some people have seen. But section 1 is just the display of those temporary plates, which include the ones that exist at present and this new one, and it's retroactively effective.
But doesn't section 1 also include the front plate?
So section 1 is not changing the front plate, but what it does say is that the commissioner place either 1 or 2 number plates as the commissioner may require. So my reading of this is that if the commissioner decided to only require one
They
plate,
could do it on their own. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
you certainly could tell them that they shall only issue 1 plate.
I
in
see.
this
No, no,
case.
no. We'll have a discussion with her. Sure.
And I will
Okay. Well,
take this down so you can see each other.
is that all right, folks? Okay. All right.
Okay, so section 2, this is the one that is changing around the language that you had added last session to do those plates, that the temporary and transit plates that would be valid for 10 days and you would just show on your phone. This is changing that, so that is no longer something that the department is recommending pursuing, and instead it's these plates that are printed at home. They last for 60 days. You need to affirm when you submit your application that you have certain things. Insurance is required. And then sort of substantive change that we spent a lot of time going through was why all of subsection C can be struck out. For one thing, you're not necessarily going to have your valid bill of sale if you've had to submit it to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get your permanent registration. You no longer need to notwithstand the display piece because there actually will be a printed out piece of paper that needs to be displayed. And the insurance piece was always a belt and suspenders approach because under Section 800, insurance is required. The one piece.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go right ahead. Yep.
All right. So we're talking about people printing it out at home. It triggers my question. I had a constituent who has had a terrible time with Department of Labor to get money that he's eligible for under unemployment. He does not have a computer. He doesn't have email. And they basically are saying, well, that's tough because that's how we're going to process. Is there any, if we say you get to print it out at home, that assumes that the person has that technology at home, internet service at home, et cetera. What is there a fallback if in fact we have someone who doesn't have that ability to print this off as this would prescribe?
So I can speak to what is in the proposed language, which is that it needs to be printed by the owner. It doesn't specify that it needs to be printed at home. So I think there would be other options there, but I think the department can certainly speak to, and I know Tony did talk about this last week, what they have done when people haven't been able to print. And I see that Mike Smith has made himself visible, so I'm sure he is eager to answer on behalf of the department.
So we've actually run into that a couple times where individuals have called us. So we've printed it, mailed it to them. There is the opportunity, I just think about like my dad. If my dad was doing it, he doesn't have a printer at home, but I do, right? I could print it for him. The neighbor probably could help him out. So there are other opportunities.
But you have to have an email account, don't you, Mike?
You would, in order to email the document back and forth. Other than that, you'd have to go somewhere and actually do the process at a computer. I think in any solution we come up with, there's always going to be some people that don't fit in. I don't, that sounded horrible, but there's always going to be somebody who doesn't have what they need in order to get to that point. But we are able to service the majority of people. And then, as I said, we can print them out and mail them to the customer. We can walk them through. We've really kind of, there are some transactions where customers call us and we say, well, there's a fee for it, and we take their credit card over the phone and process it. So, there's ways to help move through this. In the olden days, I'd say pre-COVID, I would say they could go to a library and use this stuff, but I don't even know at this point if libraries are open. So it's a hard time frame, right?
Senator Mazza?
Yes, Senator Percha.
I'm okay with leaving the language as is. I don't think we need to say that they can't hand print it. My example the other day actually was one of my son's friends has one of these cars with a hand printed. And then I asked my son if he still had it, and he said, in fact, they got pulled over the other day because the cop was like, what is this license plate? But the number was correct. It was, the police officer could look it up and said well, hurry up and get the real plates on here. This is ridiculous, but he didn't give him a ticket or anything. So it seemed to work as a hand printed thing, but so I think it's okay for those few people that for whatever reason can't print it out.
Okay. All right.
And then this one is also retroactive to September 8th of 2020, which is when the department started this portal.
All right. Any other questions?
So we're closing out that section.
Yep. Close it out. Yep.
Okay. Section 3 is just a technical correction. This is changing some accidents to crashes. The reason why you're seeing this as a standalone section is because of that sort of funky language that has something needing to happen within 1 month of July 1, 1998, and making it one so that this language is more current than looking to something happening within 1 month of something way back in 1998. And then also dealing with the fact that the word such is hard to read in its own within just the subdivision itself, but yet it's referring to healthcare providers who may provide healthcare to an individual as a result of a motor vehicle crash and making that change. Everything in here is being recommended by Legislative Council except for the changes from accident to crash, and none of it is intended to change the substance of the statute.
Okay, we all right with that? Everything? Okay. Next.
Section 4. This is the language in the chapter dealing with powers of enforcement officers. And I put up that section 23 BSA section 1600, which said, commissioner throughout this chapter means the commissioner of public safety. Yet in this particular statute, it's been determined by Leg Council catching this over the summer and then confirming with the Department of Public Safety and the Department of Motor Vehicles that this second commissioner should actually be the commissioner of motor vehicles. So one of the commissioners is the commissioner of public safety, and one of the commissioner references is to the commissioner of motor vehicles. The other changes in here are accidents to crashes and a forthwith changing to immediately. And this forthwith, I have already changed to say that it shall immediately report to the commissioner. So staying away from some of that more legalese sounding language.
We use that all the time.
You do.
Suspend the rules and message forthwith.
Yeah. So you all know what forthwith means, but we're hoping to have it be understandable by people who do not use forthwith in their day-to-day language.
Okay, we're all set. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, close it out.
Yeah, close it out.
Oh, we're making great progress.
Yes, we are. Very exciting.
Okay.
Very exciting.
I can hardly
that's a-
control my,
It's a sad commentary on what is exciting in our lives. Okay.
It'll be fun to report this.
oh my God.
Don't we usually divide that up between boats and vessels? It should be Senator Ingalls, and
Yeah,
the other should be Senator Chittenden, because
There you
we
go.
want to give our new members.
yeah, we already took a vote on that. Good.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so section 5, this is actually a substantive change. It's a policy recommendation from the Department of Motor Vehicles. And for purposes of applications for certificates of title, it would no longer require the certificate of a person authorized by the commissioner that the identification number of the vehicle has been inspected and found to conform to the description given in the application. This is another one that would be effective retroactively to April 1 of 2020. And I'm not sure if you've heard from the department as to why they're making this recommendation, but it does align with practices that they changed due to COVID.
Who would be in the struck language certified by? Sometimes title, I don't know, and private sales, etc. Could you go back to that? I'm just trying to take what's there. Maybe Mike can explain it, but is that old language that, or the language you're asking to be struck, problematic because I don't know, just the mechanics of how that certificate of a person authorized by the commissioner that the vehicle has been inspected. I'm just, could you give us a little bit of background on the old language, and is it problematic and that's why you want to have it changed? That I would find that helpful.
So basically, generally law enforcement officers are trained to conduct VIN verification. They're trained how to look at vehicles, determine if the rivets that hold the VIN plate in it have been modified, checking the Mylar tags on the doors to verify that you've got your public VIN on the dash, and then the VIN that's on the door, making sure they match. This was always required it's required in various situations, but in this specific one, it's for individuals moving into the state with a vehicle that's been registered in another state or country, or one that they've purchased that has an out-of-state title. When the COVID pandemic hit and law enforcement moved to level 2 enforcement, one of the first things they stopped doing was VIN verifications. Then DMV closed, right? So all of a sudden, nobody can get a VIN verification done, which means no one can register their vehicles. So, nationally, all of the DMVs started, the ones that actually required this, started waiving the requirement as they moved through the pandemic. All of the other states had a leg up on the state of Vermont because they had the National Motor Vehicle Title Information System, which we refer to as NMVDIS, implemented. Vermont was, well, we're not last, but we're second to last. I believe Tennessee is the last one to put this in. And what NMVDIS does is it allows you, by entering a VIN number, to determine if there's any brands on the vehicle and where the vehicle came from. So in a situation where someone presents a Florida title and we look it up in NMVDIS, we might see that the last title issued was a Georgia title. So now I have to have a different conversation with the individual. All of this plays into identifying the vehicle and knowing that you have the correct supporting documents. We do this by verifying the VIN that it matches the documents. Once we stop doing that, due to the pandemic, and implemented NMVDIS, we started to figure out that this is why some of the other states don't do it, because you have all that information right at your fingertips. We still require the VIN verifications in salvage title situations where vehicles could have been combined and stuff like that. But in your normal situation where somebody's just bought a vehicle from another jurisdiction that's not branded in any way, or you've moved in from another state, we have waived it throughout the pandemic. And as we look at the things that we've done during the pandemic, we start questioning, why did we do them before, and can we move forward without them? So huge inconvenience to customers trying to get this done, inconvenience to law enforcement, and at the end, our staff have to go outside and verify the VINs. And as we started to figure out this electronic verification method helps us to avoid the issues we're trying to avoid by doing this, we decided it was probably a good idea to ask to have it removed. And I know
So
that was longer than you wanted.
So we've actually implemented that automated system that will give you the necessary data on the VINs and
Yes.
identity. Okay.
Okay. Next.
So are we good on
Yeah,
section
yeah,
5?
we're good on that. Yep, I guess, unless somebody else has a question. All right. Okay, go for it.
So section 6, this is another just sort of cleanup one. This is the one where we do not in Vermont currently have a director of weights and measures. So instead, for purposes of the calibration of fuel tank vessels, it is the Secretary of Agriculture, Food and Markets that would be responsible for the calibration supervision.
Okay, no questions. Go ahead. All set on that one?
Okay, section 7 is another very exciting one. There is a statute referenced that is not in Title 23. It's actually in Title 32. We think this was just an error, so we are suggesting Ledge Council that this be corrected. So instead of it saying sections 1671A6 and 1671C of this title, meaning Title 23, it's those sections in Title 32. Those sections do not appear in Title 23, which is one tip-off that it's incorrect. And also for purposes of the lien filing fees in the diesel tax statute, the reference is to 32 VSA and then those specific subsection and subdivision references.
Okay. All right, that's all right.
Okay, section 8 you closed out earlier this morning. That is the snowmobile change.
Yeah.
And that's switching away from the 82 decibel. And you'll see, you know, looking back to that motorboat language that we talked about first thing this morning, was the same 82 decibels on the A scale at 50 feet, but you are then switching it to this SSCC certified.
So I have a question that triggers a question. Is there a certification? Is there a comparable certification for motorboats that come with like the certification for snowmobiles? Is there something comparable for motorboats?
I can assure you, I do not know the answer to that question.
I'm just wondering if it's, you know, if there's something that is comparable for motorboats, maybe we ought to find it out and consider it. Just a thought.
I could reach out to Sergeant Carbo, who's been my main point of contact over with the Vermont State Police for the motorboat changes, to see if he thinks there is something that would be comparable.
Yeah, he would know better than anyone. Yep, yep. That's good. Yeah, let's check that out. Sure. Okay. All right. Next.
So then that takes us into all of your motorboat vessel changes.
Yeah, we had all that. We had taken up all that, right? We've gone over all that.
So Senator Ingalls, pay attention on that. That's your section, your sections, huh?
I'm on it.
We're counting on you.
So I'm going to do this much briefer than I did on Friday, but you have in section 10 changing the chapter title to say that it is referring to vessels in chapter 29 and not just motorboats, and then same in subchapter 2 on motorboats. It's now going to be on vessels.
Okay. Guess we're moving on.
Okay, so I'll say 9 and 10 are good. Section 11, these are your changes to the definition sections. For the most part, this is cleanup language, making things consistent in terms of how the word motorboat and vessel are used, and then pulling in a number of additional definitions from the Code of Federal Regulations, usually with respect to lights for purposes of the changes that you're making to the light requirements later on. So you have all around light being added. You have some just drafting norm changes. Instead of saying shall mean, it means, and shall include, it includes. Adding the definition for masthead light in the definition for motorboat, changing it to say that it is equipped with machinery capable of propelling the vessel, and then taking out these sort of built-in exemptions that are being addressed in the balance of the language that you're looking at, and that has to do with the numbering and the fees. Motorboat to vessel changes, just some small cleanup in the personal watercraft definition, adding in a definition for sailing vessel, and I believe that then is referenced in the lighting section. Most of the changes are coming from the lighting language. Adding in the definition for side lights and stern light, some cleanup in the vessel definition using individual as opposed to person. And that is it in terms of your changes in definitions and section 11.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So I have a question. This is motor vehicles, and in the definition, you actually have a skull in there. Do we also have rowboats, kayaks? You went through that so fast.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe it's not an issue.
So one of the things that I can do is you've got racing shell or rowing skull. There are definitely parts of Title 23 on motor vehicles that address non-motorized vehicles, bicycle, for example, of the non-electric or motor assisted type. It is a very valid point that maybe we are defining racing shell or rowing skull and it's not actually used throughout the balance of the chapter. So what I'm going to do when we get offline is I'm going to make sure that racing shell or rowing skull is actually then referenced in the balance of the chapter. If it's not, then there's no need to define it, and it probably will just confuse people. Why are you defining something if it's not regulated in there? I am not familiar enough with the balance of the chapter to say definitively if there is something that addresses racing shells or rowing skulls.
Yeah, well, because there are other non-manually propelled vessels that would also, I don't know if they're addressed in that other section or not. It just raises a question about why throwing that in here relative to maybe another section, but it's just a question.
I will look into that and I will get back to you and the rest of the committee on that.
So that's, I realize that's existing, that's existing statute, but if you're trying to clean up and you've got something in one piece, one place, and
I'm gonna put you on the sailboat council now, Jane, because you're doing good with snow machine. We're gonna put you on the voting council now. You just get ready to vote.
look, I'm so hyper after spending 10 hours Zooming yesterday. We had 2 public hearings. We
feed
had a
the cat?
panel in the
feed the
afternoon
cat?
and a board meeting in the morning. So I am really,
Did you feed the cat?
No, Nathaniel is here.
Okay, all right, okay.
Because Newport, Rhode Island, Salve Regina has gone remote for a couple of weeks. And
Okay.
I don't know whether it'll continue. I don't know. Senator Chittenden UVM is still all in person.
No, we have a mix.
I know it's a hybrid, I guess, hybrid.
I do have a question, Senator.
Yes,
Mazza.
go ahead.
And Senator Kitchell, my sister-in-law is a Salve Regina alum, so I'd love to talk to you about that sometime. But on this bill, I sent an email to Anthea a while ago, and I was just reviewing my notes. You'd mentioned the Sailing Council. It wasn't clear in your response, Anthea, how much, if I don't even know if one exists, but is there a lobbying organization for sailing that we have some confirmation that they have seen these remarks and at least raised any concerns if they have them? Because if I was Senator Ingalls reporting this bill out, I'd want to know that we had checked with all of the interested parties to make sure they're not.
I think it might be like the Racing Commission.
That's a good question, because we always have to back it up. Like I said, none of us know what this all means. I don't, and so it'd be nice to know before someone starts hollering at us, what'd you do that for? And yeah, is there any association who's a little, other than the police departments or the water patrol people, they want these changes, I'm sure, but anybody else support them?
I'm not aware of anyone else who's weighed in. I worked on this language with Sergeant Carbo. So
I guess
I know he's weighed in.
Yeah, I guess we don't have anybody other than dealers probably I would be involved, because I don't know. I never heard of an organization that you belong to, a motorboat club or sailing clubs, but not.
Owner of a marina would care, I think.
Yeah, probably.
So the language, Senator Chittenden, is racing, a sailing commission?
Well, my question is, there is a lot of changes to technical components of boats and motorcrafts, vessels, and so on in this that I am not a boater. I'm not nautical in any way. And so I've, in my 3 weeks on this job, I've noticed there's a lot of lobbying agencies that have reviewed these things, and then they offer testimony or at least speak up. So I don't know if that's happened yet. I haven't heard of it. And in Anthea's response, she only stated exactly what she just stated now, that we've only had Lieutenant Carbo, or whoever his title, I forget. So I just don't know if there is an organization out there that we do want to ask about these things. Because like Senator Mazza says, that I am not an expert on any of this. So I'm kind of flying blind and yielding to Senator Ingalls and his voting experience.
You're a resident expert. You own a boat, you're an expert.
I'm glad I don't have a skull.
We might want to ask the officer in control and ask him of that if he knows of anybody that would have some comments on this sections.
Mhm.
Okay, let's move on then.
So with that sort of possibility, with asking me to reach out to Sergeant Carbo, and I will CC Liz on that, so she's in the loop if he suggests someone to
Okay.
testify. Do you want to close out or try and close out the rest of the voting sections, or do you want to sort of put a pin in it for the future?
What does the committee want to do?
I'll just follow up. I'm fine with the language. It all makes sense
Yeah.
to me. If nobody is out there in my inbox raising concerns about it, it seems to make a lot of sense. I only raised this.
We always can postpone reporting the bill if we come up with something that's unusual. So let's move ahead and accept it if it's all right. And then we always, like I said, we don't have to hurry and report this out tomorrow. So. Okay,
Sure.
all right.
Okay, so I will put a tentative closeout
Yep.
by the definitions, but I am going to look into whether or not the racing shell or rowing scull is used
Okay.
throughout.
Yep.
Mm.
Section 12 is going to be on the very bottom of page 14. I scrolled too far. This has to do with the prohibition on operating unnumbered motorboats. One of this, it's just changing a range from 3307A2 to 4. It's now A2 to 6. One of them is just, there were 5 subdivisions here that should have been referenced. And the 6th is the exemption that we pulled out of the definition of motorboat. And we'll see the addition of subdivision 6 in a later section.
Okay,
Okay,
close it out.
Okay, section 13, a lot of sections are being amended. They're all consecutive in section 13. So this is one of the 2 places that we're pulling that motorboat exemption carve out. This has to do with fees. So you see the same language that we deleted from the definition of motorboat appearing here. The rest of this section is just changing vessel to motorboat as applicable and person to individual as applicable, and boat to motorboat.
okay. We're all right.
3305A is going to be person to individual changes. And then just to comply with how we draft typically, instead of it saying under the age of 12, it's 12 years of age, under 12 years of age.
So I have a question, Anthea. Who sets the, I guess we're just, so much of this is changing like language, like an individual versus a person. Who sets the standards for drafting? And it seems like what must have been acceptable terminology or phrases in the past, all of a sudden somebody's saying, oh, that's not what we should be doing. Is there some national entity that stays up at night spending their time on what is recommended statutory language?
So for the person and individual change, and I'm going to scroll up to the definitions that are applicable in this language on boats. And this definition of person will be similar to the overall statutory definition for all of the Vermont statutes annotated.
So why does it, you say owner means a person? So why don't you say owner means an individual?
Well, because a corporation could be an owner in that instance. So in the person definition, you've got individual, partnership, firm, corporation, association, or other entity.
Okay. Oh, like
So-
corporations are a person.
Exactly. So in our statutes, person is a much broader definition than what you might typically think is person.
Senator Angles brings all his clients out in a boat and then he can deduct it. That's what he does, yeah.
Where-
Don't forget, I buy him lunch too.
That's right. So that way he can deduct his boat price because that's the cost of doing business.
So person means an individual, partnership, firm. I see that.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's a lot of the changes, but a lot of the changes sort of, using the 12 years of age, not more than, no more than, changes like that. Those come from our drafting manual, and it's an effort to have there be consistency in the way that we draft. So you've got, 30 plus titles in the Vermont statutes annotated, and they're worked on by different committees. The language is drafted by different attorneys. It's edited by different editors within Ledge Council. And the goal is to try and have it all read as if one person, one individual wrote it. So a lot of this is just trying to be consistent in things. The reason why you're seeing so much cleanup in Title 23 is every year, as part of the statutory revision process, we pick 4 titles to get reprinted. And Ledge Council spends the summer working to find all of the odd quirks in it. So Title 23 was last summer and Title 19 is this summer. So Title 19 is going to get a complete overhaul. There are less changes there, but one of the odd things about Title 19, which has to do with highways, is the last time it was printed, we didn't really capitalize anything. So agency of transportation is written out agency with a lowercase a, transportation with a lowercase t, and it looks so weird now because at some point from, I think it was 2011 when that was last printed to now, a decision was made that it would be easier to read and understand if we capitalize things like the agencies and the departments within the executive branch. So I think it's an ongoing effort to try and have the statutes be as clean as they can. And that's where a lot of these changes come from, that the editors catch and that the attorneys and ledge counsel catch.
Oh, boy. If Mike Smith comes in with this next year, I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna put him working weekends or something. This is worse than a root canal.
Hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and then we left off at 3305B. This is on page 18. Again, a lot of cleanup language, motorboat to vessel changes, person to individual changes, trying to make this sentence a little bit more clear by rearranging that last clause. None of this is intended to change the substance, cleanup language, and then a lot more persons to individuals. And that is it for 3305B. And then we're actually getting to more substantive changes with lights and equipment. I will pause there for a moment.
But none of this means much to us, the lights and equipment, because what do we know about it? I mean, it's just, we might just well accept it and just move on because of whatever. I mean, I appreciate you going through it, but what, it doesn't mean anything because I don't know whether a round light or a square light or a blue and red, I know, but so does the committee want to just continue, just let it go and finish it up? Because it's unless you want to go into details, I don't
Yeah.
particularly want to. Okay, I get the sense that they don't want to go through details. Let's just accept it because we don't know if it's right or wrong.
I had a question on section 19, I think it was.
Okay, go right ahead.
We can skip to that if we're.
So that's on page 29.
Yeah. Oh, it was just, we have an age limit for the personal watercraft, AKA jet skis. Do we have a age limit for motorboats? Like, can anybody drive Senator Ingalls' boat, or do you need to be a certain age?
I do not know. Perhaps Senator Ingalls does, but I can look into it if he doesn't.
I think that anybody under 12 years old can't drive anything over 6 horsepower. And then you have a boating course. And I don't know when the boating course kicks in, but there is a grandfathered section of who has to take a boating course. And I think that would be the language that would determine that. I don't know, Senator Perchalek, as far as that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
It doesn't really pertain to the language, I guess, because I'm okay. I mean, we're just changing the way it's worded. So I just wondered if we were being consistent with having it. So it sounds like we have something, but.
Mike, are you still on with us? He probably got.
I sure am, and I am. I'm trying to make sure that I don't have to work weekends.
Did you spend a lot of time on all these issues? I mean, how did you go through it all?
Basically, I'm on the Snowmobile Council with Sergeant Carbo. We've had conversations, and every year I provide data for him for the Coast Guard. These are all changes required by the Coast Guard to meet the federal regulation, just like we do with CDL. When we come to you and say we got to change the wording.
So this is the Coast Guard. So we got somebody to back this up.
Yes.
Oh, okay. It isn't just someone sitting in their office trying to figure out where the lights go.
No, it is not. No, it is not. And I'm trying to find the section in regards to the boater safety course, because I want to say it's for anybody born after like July 1st, 1974 or something like that. It kind of mimics the snowmobile safety course.
This is going to be a lot easier to report to people that this is the Coast Guard regulations and we're just adopting to their standards. I think that'll sell the issue pretty easily, knowing that I got a question on why the light should be up at the top or the bottom or the side or. Okay, that's a good clarification because I think that helps us all.
And definitely Sergeant Carbo could provide more specificity in that area.
Senator Chittenden said, as long as we have some backing somewhere that says why we're doing this, because none of us are qualified to, well, I'm not, to make a decision of what lights go where. And I know the crashes, that we understand we're going from accidents to crashes, that's fine. But other than that.
You have a hand up. Tony has his hand up.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
right ahead. I'm sorry, I can't see.
First of all, I apologize for not introducing myself. Director Tony Fakis, DMV Enforcement and Safety. Specific to the question, I'm quoting right from the U.S. Coast Guard, Vermont State Police, the manual, and it says all, as Director Smith already said, it's all persons born after January 1, 1974 must complete the approved boater safety education course to operate motorized vessel legally. And then those further down, it states that those younger than 12 years of age but older than 10 years of age must take a classroom course. And this gets into the, and then no one under the age of 12 may operate any vessel powered by a motor of more than 6 horsepower, which we heard earlier as well. And no one under 16 years of age may operate a personal watercraft legally, even if the person has completed the boater safety education course.
Okay, that helps. That's good. Yeah.
And
Eagles had it right. He gets a gold star.
Yeah.
And those things are actually in the language, that it's not being amended, but it is in the bill. So you have what Director Fakos just said, the January 1, 1974, that's in 3305B. And then I previously had the under 12 years of age language up.
Okay, we're all set. All right, let's move on. If there's more, or this has to go to finance, I'm sure, because it's got finances in here.
There are no changes to fees.
okay.
So it might not have to. The fee piece has to do with the issuance of the temporary licenses, the temporary registration plates. That's
All right.
staying at $6, and they looked at that language for what was going to be displayable on a phone last year. So I don't want to wade into making a parliamentary decision, but that I think is the only language that addresses fees in the bill.
Okay. Anything else?
And so there's your 6 horsepower language in 3305A.
Yep.
So do you want me to jump to the non-boat language at the end of the bill?
Yes, why don't we do that? Because we've had enough about boats.
Okay. So that's going to take us to page 34. And I will get that.
All right. We're making progress now. Okay.
Okay, so page 34, this is where you've got your blanket replacing accident with crash throughout Title 23. So
Okay.
for the ones that were not going to be standalone sections, we've identified the instances by subdivision or subsection where accident will change to crash, accidents will change to crashes, and an accident will change to a crash.
Okay. We're all right. Go ahead.
Okay, sticking with accident and crash, there are a few instances where it wouldn't make sense to just swap accident for crash, and those are standalone sections. So section 24 is just striking the word accident. This is in the public records fees language. So if we had included that in the above section, we would run the risk of it needing to say individual crash report. Instead, it'll just say individual crash report. Same situation with section 25, changing it from traffic accident to crash, and an accident to a crash. Same in the next section, section 26, there's a traffic accident changing to crash. And that takes us through all of the accident crashes, except for the one with the acronym, which we'll do at the very end. So I think you're good on these.
All right.
Okay, sections 27, 28, and 29, these are all in the CDL section. This has to do with sort of some over-enthusiastic capitalization. So in our drafting manual and the way that we use the word state throughout statute, an uppercase state means Vermont. These states, and I confirm this with Mike Smith, should be lowercase because they are a state, any state. So a violation of any state law, not just the state laws, the Vermont laws. So that's the change in 27, 28, 29, and 30.
Okay.
Okay, and now I'm just going to switch over to the Word document, which I'm going to have Liz post as soon as we're done, since we've got 3 more sections in the Word document. The first is section 31. This was the language that Mike went through today, giving a little bit additional explanation for the entry-level driver requirements for the CDLs that are going to become effective in February of 2022. And the rest of this is just cleanup, but the really substantive piece is requiring the requirements of 49 CFR Part 380. That's what will become effective on in February of 2022.
Questions? Everybody's all right?
Okay, last two sections. This is just another error that we found. The statutes that are being referenced 3840 and 3842. The statutes do not exist in Title 23. The correct references should be 3833 and 3835, and that's been confirmed by the department.
All right.
Okay, and then the last one is the repeal of language that all had to do with what was supposed to be happening in 1998. The Department of Motor Vehicles has confirmed with the Department of Public Safety, I always say service, public safety, that language in its entirety can be repealed. That was brought up because there was an accident in the acronym SHARP. And then the rest of it just had to do with expenditures in fiscal year 1998 and the purchasing of some equipment, which happened 2 decades ago and is no longer being used. So the department supports the repeal of that statute.
Mike, some time ago, we talked about inspections. They're going to print their own stickers. Is that in this bill somewhere? No.
It is not. I know that process is going underway, and I think
Okay.
Director Fakos can speak to that better than I.
Okay, I heard about that. I didn't know where it was. Is it going to something that you're going to need legislation for, or you're going to do it on your own?
Director
We're going to be able to go forward with the existing statutory language and framework.
Good. Well, it sounds good. Yeah. When is that going to happen? This year or?
Yeah, we're hoping, as a matter of fact, the teams are meeting today actually here, and we anticipate a little slower, but we are going to start with the pilot program in stations by the end of this fiscal year is our aggressive plan, but we will be complete in the rollout of all 1,170 plus inspection stations by the end of this calendar year is our ultimate plan.
Wow, great. Good. Okay, anything else this morning? Okay, I think unless there's any other questions, that finishes this section or these sections, and then we'll get an update from Anthea on a couple of the issues, and we can finalize it.
Okay.
Do we have anything else this morning, Liz, or is this it?
We do. We have a traffic and safety program with Jesse Devlin, and I gave them a heads up that we might want them early. So let me see if I can grab them right
Okay.
now, and I'll get back to you ASAP.
Do you want a 5-minute break, committee?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and the other section will get online. So at 11:15, we'll be back on.